Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fate.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you know the big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands thrown up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
They have no swag. They have no nothing.
Terrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Hello and welcome to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Jeff Goodman with me. We have a lot to get to, Jeff. It was a busy weekend of commitments and withdrawals. We got to talk about JT Toppin headed to Lubbock. We got to talk about the Illini landing themselves a talented Lithuanian, and we're going to get to Chaz, Lanier, DJ Wagner, and the other Braeden Smith, all committing to new programs over the course of the last 4 days over the long holiday weekend. We're also going to have a nice little Big East offseason reset. We're going to hand out some grades. We're going to pick some winners. We're going to pick some losers. You will not be the only loser that I am making fun of in today's episode in the Big East reset, Jeff. But before we do, some sad news that kind of came out of nowhere on Memorial Day weekend. Bill Walton, one of the legendary announcers and a guy that was probably one of the top 40 or 50 players in the history of the sport of basketball, and one of the greatest college basketball players that we've ever seen, a 3-time National Player of the Year, a 2-time champion, a 2-time NBA championship, an MVP at the NBA level, and a guy whose health in both his basketball career and in his life just kind of failed him and did not allow him to maybe reach the potential that he could have had. Passed away. He was 71 years old. I know you knew Bill Walton a little bit. I know you have some stories about him. What can you tell us about Bill Walton?
I mean, you heard it from kind of everybody over the last, 24, 36 hours, just what a unique human being he was. And, the thing that always hit me about Bill was no matter how much pain he was in, and he was in a lot, from his knees to his back to obviously recently dealing with his battle with cancer, he would never let anybody see that. Like, he'd never feel sorry for himself. He'd always have a smile on his face. Every time I would see him, again, go up to you with a big handshake and, hello, Jeff, like just the way he talked. But again, I got a couple stories just, from being with him over the years. And my favorite picture I've ever taken legitimately in this business was with Bill Walton and his dog in a teepee in the backyard of Bill Walton's house in San Diego. I was there doing a game with him, San Diego State game, and he invited a bunch of us over. And you go into his house, first of all, and it's, a shrine to Grateful Dead. And he's got the drum set and a special room for the Grateful Dead. And then we walk out in the back and it's like a jungle back there, legitimately like a jungle. It is humongous. And this is the house that I guess, that he got when he turned pro, and he's had it forever. And taking a picture with him and his dog in the teepee was just, I don't know, it's just one that you look at it, you can't help but smile. But I think the part of Bill, again, is just like, how giving he was and how, again, like I would see him, he would run into Danny Ainge at a game and I'd be there with him talking to Danny. He'd come up and obviously they played together and were very close on those Celtics teams and even earlier. And he'd go up to Danny and shake his hand and go, Danny, Bill Walton. And just again, kind of how he was. We did the PK 80 tournament together in Portland with all the biggest teams a few years back when I was with ESPN. And that dude, people didn't think he worked hard because he'd be on the broadcast and just spouting off crazy shit. Like he would go off on the ultimate of tangents. That guy was there from the first shoot around or the first practice till the last one all day, 8 teams. And we were there together for like 12 hours straight. And he's doing his research. He's talking to people. He just loved, being around people. And I remember when we went into that game, I called Luke Walton before the game. I said, hey, I'm going to do a little game with your dad here. And I said, all these crazy things that, these like completely innocuous like facts that Bill Walton has. Like, I want to see, are they real or not? Is he making this shit up or are they real? And Luke would be like, yeah, try it, see how it goes. So I would ask him. I asked him like 3 questions during the game, just like random, like how many lakes are there in Montana? And he answered it. 3 questions, he answered them, and then I Googled them. And like, he was right on all 3. He was right. Like, I thought there's no way this dude knows all this stuff that he's spouting off every single game. But he knew so much. He was so well versed. You hear from everybody, from Luke, from the other sons that he had. Like, he was so well read and could talk about so many different things. It's sad. Like I went to bed last night and it hit me. And again, I wasn't that close with Bill, but I worked with him enough. I was around him. It hit me different for some reason. The good part is it was kind of a celebration yesterday when he passed away, in a way, from people telling these stories, because I do think people understand that's what Bill Walton would have wanted. You know, again, he wants to be remembered. He always said it like, I had the greatest life, and everybody would look at him like, you went through all these injuries. You never really realized your NBA potential for that long because of all these injuries, but he never felt sorry for himself, ever.
Yeah, he used to always say, I'm the luckiest man in the world, right? That was one of the things that he'd say on every broadcast. I've really thoroughly enjoyed and really do appreciate Dave Pasch, who was his longtime partner at ESPN, just spending all day today tweeting screenshots of text conversations that he's had with Bill over the years. And some of them were just absolutely hilarious, absolutely hysterical. And you get a little bit of a sense of who Bill was behind the scenes, just kind of going through those. So if anybody has a chance to kind of go through Dave's Pasch feed today, it's touching and it's heartwarming to be able to kind of go back and look through all that. The thing that I will always think about with Bill Walton is the levity that he brought to a broadcast, right? When you kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the college basketball season, and it's January and it's February, and you're like us and you're covering the sport, and 6 nights a week you're locked in until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. watching college basketball games. Once you kind of get to the end of the season, it can be a little bit of a slog, and there's only so much that you can learn about each of these teams. And if you're watching something late night on an ESPN broadcast or a Pac-12 network broadcast, there's got to be something special about the show, the broadcast itself, that will make you want to tune into like Oregon State playing Washington State. And one of those things was Bill Walton on the broadcast, because you knew at the very least you were going to find a way to be entertained. I think the reason it hit everybody so hard is because he had this vibe about him that allowed you to feel like you knew him, even if you had never met him. And I had never met him in my life. I think we all can relate, because we all kind of have that like one uncle or one cousin or one family member or one friend that is kind of out there and eccentric and is very much just himself and embraces the idea of being himself. And I think that all of us in the college basketball community are probably going to miss it and miss his presence and miss the joy that he brought to a college basketball broadcast. There is nobody on the planet that loved the Pac-12 the way that Bill Walton loved the Pac-12. And I'll miss that. I'll miss his calls. I'll miss the random facts that he brought to a college basketball broadcast. And frankly, I'll miss the partnership that he had with Dave Pasch. I think that there was something special and unique and memorable about what those two had. And yeah, it's one of the greatest to ever do it as a broadcaster, one of the greatest to ever do it as a basketball player, and one of the people that just, it's one of those ones where you say, thank you for giving us your life. And Bill Walton, 72 years old. Goodman, let's get to the basketball. We have some commitments we need to talk about. We were going to start the show by kind of breaking down the addition that Illinois made, but that was until JT Toppin, the Mountain West Freshman of the Year, and a guy who had entered his name into the NBA draft, made the announcement on Tuesday afternoon that he had committed to Texas Tech instead of going pro, instead of going to Texas. feels like that kind of came a little bit out of nowhere, but this was something that had gained some momentum over the weekend. And Grant McCaslin has his big, splashy transfer portal edition. What do you make of JT Toppin's commitment?
Love it. Love it. And this is something that had been going on for weeks. Texas Tech threw a ton of money out there for JT Toppin, according to my sources. And, one of the best left on the board, right? I mean, a guy that some people thought, might have stayed in, probably could have gotten a two-way, goes somewhere, in that back half of the second round. But ultimately, again, the landscape has changed enough. So if you're JT Toppin, you make a smart business decision. And his agent is Ramon Sessions, former Nevada guard from years ago, played overseas for a long time, played in the NBA some. And it's the smart decision here. And it fills a major void for Texas Tech and Grant McCaslin, who we talked about it last week, right? When we went through the Big 12 reset. And we said, we like their roster, but they're kind of missing a piece. They lost Pop Isaacs. Obviously, that's going to hurt them from a toughness standpoint, from a lead guard standpoint, but they're still missing one piece up front. Now they've got that from a guy who can block shots, who's athletic, who's switchable on the defensive end, who could score some and will probably make a jump from last year to this year, being that he was just a freshman last season and kind of burst onto the scene. Nobody expected that. So I think this is a huge, huge addition for Texas Tech, and one that now puts them in the discussion for a team that can do some damage in the Big 12. I felt like before that, they were like a fringe NCAA tournament team. I think now he takes them to a level where they can do some damage and be a player at, the top half, top third of the league.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you can add a guy that averaged 12 and 9 and 2 blocks and shot 34% from 3 as a freshman in a league as good as the Mountain West was this past season, I think that is something that you can kind of look at and say that is a nice pickup. I'm still a little worried about what's going on in their backcourt. Elijah Hawkins, the Minnesota transfer, will be asked to play a big load there. And the kid they brought in from Drank, I'm blanking on his name in the moment, but he'll
Kevin
help
Overton.
as well. Kevin Overton, yeah. And also, I mean, look, they paid a lot of money for Kerwin Walton last year, the transfer from North Carolina, and if they're able to get him going this season, that'll be good. I really am intrigued at what you can do with a front court and the level of versatility that you'll have with Darion Williams, JT Toppin, and Federico. There's a lot of versatility, a lot of things that they create.
Federico, Rob.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Is that the way that we have to say it now?
I think we need to. I think it's just got Federico.
Well, look, there's a lot of things that a creative coach like Grant McCaslin will be able to do with those 3 guys on his front line. So I'm excited to see what they can do. I still don't think that they're going to crack that kind of like top 5 in the Big 12 just yet. I still think that they're probably that next tier below that, but they are going to be really good. Let's get to Illinois because they made an addition as well. A 6'5" guard who I'm praying that I'm not going to get this name completely butchered, but Kasparas Jakucionis, a Lithuanian who turns 18 years old tomorrow, Jeff, and played for Barcelona's B team, got some minutes as a 16-year-old for Barcelona's A team in the ACB, and is a guy that is a possible first-round pick heading into the 2025 NBA draft. Illinois had maybe not the greatest offseason, right? With the potential of Coleman Hawkins not coming back to Illinois, losing all the talent that they lost, who is now out of eligibility, and not striking on some of the targets that they had necessarily in the transfer portal. But it seems like there is a lot of hype for this kid, Kasparas Jakucionis, coming into Illinois. You have a scouting report on him. You talked to some people about him. What do you make of this new addition to Brad Underwood's roster?
Well, like my second home is basically like Lithuania now. So, I got to get back there soon. But yeah, I did speak to an NBA guy who has seen Kasparas, or however you pronounce his name. I don't know that well, but seen him several times. And he said he loves him. Pure point guard, tough as shit. Good IQ, good skill level, intangibles, just controls the game well. sees the court well. I think he set a record in the tournament with 17 assists in this recent EuroLeague Final Four weekend. Defensively, yeah, that could be a problem for him. That could be an issue. He's not the biggest or strongest or quickest dude in the world, but he can create a shot for himself. Solid shooter, especially off the dribble, deep range. He shoots it with confidence. One of those guys that again, I think can help an Illinois team that brought in Kai Boswell, but Kai wasn't great last year, as we know. He struggled at Arizona last season. He comes back, and this takes some of the pressure, I think, off Boswell having to do this thing, by himself. And now you've got a couple guys that can have the ball in their hands and make plays for themselves and others.
Yeah, it's another. Underwood's really putting together another roster of a lot of guys that are similar sizes, a lot of guys that are versatile, a lot of players that can kind of play different positions in different roles. Trey Wright, the transfer from Louisville, is coming in as well. Ty Rogers is still there. I'm a big fan of Kerry Booth and what his upside could end up being. So I like the addition. The one thing I will say is that it can be a little bit hit or miss with the guys coming over from Europe. I think it helps that they're going to be able to get him in earlier and get him into summer school, and be able to allow him to have a little bit more time to adjust to the American game, to the American lifestyle, to the American language. I think last year, the team that did the overseas thing as well as anybody was UCLA. And we saw how difficult that was to be able to get Birthday Buchenchel and Adai and some of these other guys adjusted to the college game. Jan Vide, another Lithuanian, adjusted to the college game as quickly as possible. So I do think that there is an element of, an adjustment factor that's going to happen there. But if you're a 16-year-old and you're able to play for Barcelona's A team, even if it's only for a couple of games here or there, I think that says a lot about what you are as a player. And the 6'5" point guard, look, Goodman, today I've watched enough highlight reels of him on YouTube and on different social channels that I feel like I could probably break down all of the things that this kid does best. But those highlight reels are highlight reels for a reason. You could pretty much take anybody's makes and make them look like an all-star if you put it together the right way. So the adjustment factor is going to be, look, he turns 18 tomorrow. We're not talking about a 21 or a 22-year-old here. We're talking about someone that is going to be very much be a freshman that has to go through all of the adjustment to the college level a typical freshman would, but is also going to have to be adjusting to living and playing in a new country.
Yeah, no, it's an adjustment. And again, you still got one more year of the COVID year. So they're going up against, 23, 24, 25-year-olds as well. So, yeah, I mean, listen, again, I think this is one of those kind of not insurance policies because they paid him a lot of money. So they're going to expect him to play. But again, it takes some of the pressure off of Boswell to have to do everything by himself here.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think that this is a good addition, and I think that it is one that Underwood and the staff needed. And if you're going to tell me that they're going to go into a season with a backcourt that more or less consists of, Kai Boswell, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, Trey White, and Kasparas Jakucionis, I would feel moderately good about that, pretty good about that if I'm an Illinois fan. So I like the addition, and I like what the potential is there. Listen, we have a lot more to get to. 3 big named guards committed over the weekend. Chaz Lanier is going to Tennessee. DJ Wagner is going to Arkansas, and Braeden Smith, not that Braeden Smith, the other Braeden Smith, is heading to Gonzaga. We'll break down what that all means coming up next. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We are going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners, the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. Rob Dauster and Jeff Goodman here. Goodman, we had 3 big guard commitments over the long Memorial Day weekend. Chaz Lanier committed to Tennessee. DJ Wagner committed to Arkansas. And Braeden Smith, not that Braeden Smith, the other Braeden Smith, the Colgate Braeden Smith, is going to Gonzaga. Of those 3, who was the biggest and most important commitment out of that group?
I think it was Chaz Lanier. I do. I know some people think I'm crazy. You know, DJ Wagner was at one point the number 1 player in the country. But I think Lanier, like Tennessee needed him badly. Like they really needed him. And, you know, he's obviously a local product for them. You know, they beat out Kentucky and BYU. Probably had the least amount of money on the table from what I'm told. But again, he wanted to play there. He felt like, again, close to home, and he fit in well there. Although I think all 3 needed him. You know, he's a guy who can, you know, who can give them a guy who can maybe make a play with the game on the line or the shot clock winding down. He's a guy you can give the ball to, and he can kind of make a play. Now, I know it's a big jump in level, and if Tennessee fans are expecting another Dalton Connect, they're going to be sorely disappointed because Chaz Lanier is not – there may never be another Dalton Connect, honestly, going from his road, right? His road from junior college to Northern Colorado to honestly having a better run at the SEC level and being the second best player probably in the country last season. But I think Lanier fills a major hole for this Tennessee team and makes the Vols a contender again.
I wouldn't go that far to make them a contender. I think he is a kind of like a borderline all SEC addition. I think he's a very nice complementary piece, but I think that's kind of what he'll be, right? I think he at the SEC level, he's probably best if he's like your second best scorer. And while I do agree that Tennessee definitely needed him the most out of these other additions, I'm not sold that he is going to be the answer to kind of what ails that program. We talked about them a little bit on Thursday. For me, I think I'm big into this commitment for DJ Wagner to Arkansas. I think that they needed 1, bodies, and 2, guys that had some level of college basketball experience. Now, putting him alongside Janelle Davis in the backcourt with Boogie Fland as kind of the guy off the bench, I think will be really interesting. One thing that I am worried about with this group is that they have a lot of guys who are going to be looking to kind of score first and set people up second. So I'll be curious to see how DJ Wagner's role with this team develops this year. But I do really like the backcourt of Nelly Davis and DJ Wagner. I know that DJ Wagner did not necessarily have the freshman year that a lot of people projected, Jeff, but I think that he had a better year than people gave him credit for. I think that he improved in some areas more than people gave him credit for. And I think that if you're getting the bounce back season where he already kind of knows what's going to be expected from him and he knows the coaching staff, I think that this is a really nice pickup for Arkansas, even though it maybe wasn't necessarily the most surprising decision that anyone made.
Yeah, I mean, you know, listen, I think DJ Wagner was overrated coming out of high school. I think we saw that last season. The expectations were probably a little too high for him. You know, as you said, I'm not sure I love again, it's about fit. It's about fit for me more than anything else. You can accumulate as much talent as you want. But if they didn't have Reed Sheppard last season as the connector, as the ball mover, it wasn't going to work last season at Kentucky. Like I said it, Dillingham and DJ Wagner probably doesn't work in Antonio Reeves unless you have Reed Shepherd out there with him. And then it really did work. Boogie Fland's not a ball mover. Nelly Davis is not a ball mover. He's a scorer. DJ Wagner, while he averaged over 3 assists a game, and I'll give him credit for that, he's not a ball mover. Now, the good thing is Nelly can shoot the hell out of it. Boogie Fland can shoot the hell out of it. So I think you can bring on DJ Wagner in that respect, not a very good shooter, and you're fine. The question is, who is going to make decisions to make life easier for everybody else, especially the bigs? Who do you want running your team? Or is it just going to be one of those things that there really is no de facto point guard and it's just kind of everybody making plays and you're doing the good old dribble drive for John Calipari? He takes the dribble drive with him from Lexington to Fayetteville.
Well, first of all, they didn't run the dribble drive last year, and but I think that DJ can.
This is probably going to be the dribble drive. They didn't run it because they have Reed Shepherd.
Yeah, well, we'll see what they end up running. I think that there is it could be useful. I also think Carter Knox is another guy that's probably going to be able to get a bucket. And look, here's my take on DJ Wagner is that if he wants to be able to continue to grow to the level that maybe was expected of a top 10 prospect, he probably has to figure out how to be that ball mover, creative facilitator type, because I'm not sure that he is an NBA level score first point guard if he doesn't have the jump shot, right? I think he has to find a way to be that guy. And if that means that he is the guy that sets the table for a Nelly Davis and for a Carter Knox and for a Boogie Fland and for a Big Z and for Jonas Adu, then I think that if he can kind of lean into that role, that's probably the best thing for him long term. But at the end of the day, like, look, they needed talent, they needed pieces, especially if they missed on the is it Igor Demon, the kid that committed to BYU? What do you make of him, by the way? 6'7" lead guard, potential lottery pick, Russian kid going to BYU.
I had an NBA guy tell me he is an absolute stud. 6'8", athletic, kind of lead guard, combo guard. And I think that's kind of what, to me, if you're John Calipari in Arkansas, you're missing here, right? You get him, it's a different ball game. I don't know who else. Maybe there's somebody else still on the board internationally that Arkansas can pull. I think they'll get one more player added to this roster. But to me, that's what you needed. You needed a guy like that who can kind of run a team, make good decisions with size, that plays a mature game, that, again, can set up the DJ. Like, I just don't want – I want somebody to make life easier for Wagner and Nelly Davis, and obviously for Boogie Fland, who's a freshman, guard, combo guard is really what he is.
Yeah, I think that's why the addition of Wagner is important. And again, Igor Demon committing to BYU, that's another player where you have these 18 and 19-year-olds coming over from Europe. They're talented and they're promising, and it's going to be a level of adjustment for all of them.
Ask Mick Cronin.
I do think
ask Mick Cronin how that went.
Yeah, I do think that it is a great way for coaching staffs to be able to bolster a roster. I get a little bit concerned when I see you going overseas to bring somebody in, hoping that that's going to be someone that can change your roster, if that makes sense, right? I think that if you're adding a piece here and you're adding a piece there and you're looking for someone that maybe is going to be there for 2 years, that's probably your best bet. If you're trying to get these one and dones that are future lottery picks that are coming over because you can make more in NIL than they would have been making for one of the pro teams that they could play for overseas, that's when it's a little bit concerning. Speaking of teams that like to go overseas, Jeff, how about the Gonzaga Bulldogs going out and getting Braeden with an E? We got to figure out a way to be able to keep Braeden Smith, Purdue Braeden Smith, and now Gonzaga Braeden Smith.
You don't have to worry about it this year, Rob. You don't need to worry about it this year because the Braeden Smith, who's transferring from Colgate, the Patriot League Player of the Year, he's going to redshirt this year. So in a year, you can worry about it. For now, the Braeden Smith going to Spokane is basically there to learn the system, to be able to watch, Nemhard and Hickman and some of those guys, right? And be that guy in a year.
Interesting. Do we know if Michael Ajayi is coming back for Gonzaga yet? Because I think that's
I mean,
kind of, we talked about this
all
earlier.
signs, yes, all signs are that he's coming back. I mean, listen, I feel like of all these guys going in the draft, most of them that put their names in, unless you're a first rounder, okay, unless you're a first rounder at this point. And realistically, if you look at it, there's probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 guys that you could go in saying, like, they're first rounders, right? There's 15 of them we could have picked out 3 months ago and said, we know they're first rounders. Then there's probably 5 this year international guys that are going to go in the first round. That leaves like 10 spots at this point. There's 10 spots people are fighting for. All these other guys that put their name in for the draft, like, withdraw, because, again, you can make more money right now going back to college than you're going to make throwing your name in there. Now, again, some kids are done with school, and that's fine. If you want to be done with school and move on to your pro career, that's fine. But what I will say is, these days, from a business standpoint, from a future standpoint, and putting money in your bank account now, if you don't hate school, and even if you hate school, most of these classes are online now anyway. Like, it's not that hard anymore.
Yeah, and look, with Khalif Battle and Michael Ajayi coming to the program, Ryan Nemhard and Nolan Hickman coming back, and the big guys that are currently on that roster, you talked about futures. Going over and finding a future on BetMGM for Gonzaga probably wouldn't be a good idea. They're back, man. Gonzaga is going to be back this year. I like how I'm saying Gonzaga is going to be back when they made it to their 9th straight Sweet 16. Like, how do we ever get to the point where we question
back,
whether or not Mark Few had this thing
you
going?
mean back from a standpoint that they're really a player that we're going to take seriously this year coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And with Jai coming back, which I think he will, they have the depth now to do it. Like, we knew last year they had 7 dudes. They just didn't have enough firepower. Now they have enough.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it too. But when they ended up as a 5 seed last year, that was I don't know. It was different than the past Gonzaga team. So I'm in on them, and I think they're going to be really, really good. Listen, we have some other info on players coming back to school. Eric Dixon is returning to Villanova. That's big. Stephen Ashworth is returning to Creighton. That's big. 2 Big East programs got big names coming back to school, and there's a lot more to talk about in our Big East offseason reset. That is coming up next on the Field of 68. Whether you are a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross-country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifydhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's unifydhealing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system. Well, welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark here on the Field of 68 Media Network. We are live. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Jeff Goodman with me. We are streaming over on Stadium, and we are live on our YouTube channel. We'll be breaking it down on After Dark at 9 p.m. every Tuesday and every Thursday until the NBA draft. And then we're going to kind of figure some things out here. But we are going to be here twice a week
going
with
on
you,
vacation.
breaking down the latest editions. Good. Get out of here. It'll be nice to be able to talk to someone that actually knows ball here at some point. When we have replacements for you on the show. We got to talk about the Big East, Jeff. Eric Dixon is coming back to school. Stephen Ashworth is coming back to school. We do not yet have word on whether or not Alex Caravan is coming back to school. So with all of this in mind, let's talk about winners. Let's talk about losers. I'm going to make you pick a breakout star and a breakout team in the Big East this year, which is going to be a difficult thing in this conference. But we're starting with the biggest winners of the offseason. Who is it for you, Jeff Goodman?
I don't, biggest winners, I would say to me, UConn obviously did a good job, getting Aiden Mahaney, getting Terrace Reed. Listen, you knew they were going to do it. They were going to be able to restock the cupboard because of what they've done the last 2 years. I think most kids right now, if they go in the portal, they're hoping to hear from Dan Hurley and the UConn Huskies. So certainly they're going to be among the winners. I think Xavier's done a nice job. If you look at what they've been able to do, first of all, they're going to get Zach Fremantle back, and they've been raving about him, about his health, about how he's bought in. Jerome Hunter, they're hoping to get back as well. So that's kind of two starters they're hoping to get back that have been in the program. Davian McKnight returns, and then you bring in a bunch of transfers, right? Ryan Conwell from Indiana State, Marcus Foster from Furman, who we've seen, Hughley, who is great at Pitt and has been solid, certainly at Oklahoma. Maddox from Toledo. They got a bunch. I like what Providence did. I like what Kim English did. Going to the portal and getting Abdul Rahim from Georgia, getting Cardette from Chicago State, getting the big kid, Sendoko from St. Joe's. Bensley Joseph's a nice piece. And obviously keeping Bryce Hopkins. So I think that was a big one as well. I'm trying to think anybody else that would go in that. Creighton getting Pop Isaacs, one of my favorite players, and much needed because obviously they're going to need a lead guard. Ashworth needs some help in that backcourt. And I think, you get Kalkbrenner back. That was humongous for them on so many levels. So they've got a really good point guard and one of the best bigs in the country. Am I forgetting anybody? I mean, St. John's, they did all right. They got Kadari Richmond. He's one of the best guys in the portal. So, I think they're the haves and the have-nots here. When I look down the list for the Big East, do you kind of agree? Have I missed anybody that would be deemed a winner in the portal?
How could you miss anybody? I asked you for the biggest winner, and you named literally the entire conference. Is there anybody he didn't name here, Trevor? I asked for one team, and you just named 5 teams. For my money, I think that the biggest winner is probably Creighton. I would go with you get back Ryan Kalkbrenner. You get back Stephen Ashworth, who I think is going to, year 2 is going to step up, knockdown shooter. And the addition of Pop Isaacs, I think, is huge for him. They also brought in Jemiah Neal from Arizona State, and they got a bunch of freshmen coming in. But bringing back Kalkbrenner when you are losing Trey Alexander and Baylor Shireman, I think is just enormous because of what he provides defensively and the stability that he gives you. Like right there with Ryan Kalkbrenner on your roster, Creighton to me is a top 25 team. Right. And then you just figure all the rest of the stuff out. But you have your defensive anchor. You have a guy you can play through offensively. And you have a guy that, for my money, will probably head into next season as the preseason player of the year in the Big East. You hit when I wrote down my list, you hit on all 5 of them that I had written down. I do think that Xavier, the one that surprised me, like as I went through this, and we talked about this a little bit off air, Jeff, but the one that surprised me is how much I liked Xavier's offseason. Because I was thinking, like, when I sat down to kind of look through it, I was thinking to myself, they're losing Quincy Oliveri, they're losing Des Claude, they lose a bunch of the European guys that they brought in last offseason, and they're relying on hopefully having 2 big guys that did not play last season coming in and bolstering their front line again this year, right? So I was thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to like what Xavier did in this offseason. And then it's one of those ones where when you look at what they've added with everything that's happened in like the last month in the portal, I completely forgot that they brought in Marcus Foster from Furman. I completely forgot that they went out and got John Hughley and Cameron Fletcher, who are two guys that have had a lot of success at the high major level before. I completely forgot that we had Dante Maddox commit to Xavier live on this very program. I completely forgot that that happened. It feels like that happened in 2021 with everything that's happened over the course of the last 6 weeks in the sport. Ryan Conwell's a really nice addition who played at a high level at a good Indiana State program. And Roddy Anderson didn't put up huge numbers last year at Boise State, but one, the guys at Boise State really liked him. And two, he had a monster year at one of the, is it UC San Diego? Was it San Diego? I can't keep all the three San Diego programs straight, but he had one of those schools in San Diego. He had a monster year as a freshman. So the more that I look at it, the more I really like what Sean Miller has put together. And I do think that there are enough pieces and enough weapons there that when you allow Sean Miller to cook, he's going to have a really good year. Xavier's going to be back this season, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I love what Sean's done. And again, bringing back, three key pieces with all these transfers. It's a lot of transfers, but as long as you have three guys back that know you, that know your system, especially McKnight, who's kind of the guy who's going to get the brunt of the minutes at the point, I think that's huge for him.
Yeah, Providence as well. I'll just, keeping Bryce Hopkins from entering the portal was a big one for him. We all heard those that scuttlebutt when you kind of reach to the end of the portal deadline. Biggest losers in this year's portal season in the Big East.
I mean, Villanova. Villanova clearly is the biggest loser to me. It's not even close. I know they brought back Eric Dixon here, but you look at their roster, it's just so underwhelming at the end of the day, especially compared to what they did last year in the portal, right? I mean, they had 3 million plus. They went out and just boom, boom, boom. They got a bunch of dudes, and we were like, man, Villanova. I remember talking to Kyle Neptune at Big East Media Day and being like, listen, my hot take is Villanova going to the Final Four. And, nobody really laughed that hard at that point. You didn't. Kyle didn't. And they didn't make the tournament last year. They were downright disappointing. And you look at the roster now, and it's like Tyler Perkins from Penn and Brickus from LaSalle. They got Longino back, and it's very, very underwhelming. And I think a big part of it is, again, when you don't deliver in your first 2 years as head coach, I just think the money's not going to be there. The boosters are not going to dig into their pockets anymore and say, hey, we're supporting Kyle Neptune and what he's doing. I think it's kind of the other way right now. They're saying like, no, we're not supporting because we want to change. We want Jay right back, which again isn't going to happen. But we want to change. Yeah. So I just think Villanova's one. I think Seton Hall, and I just feel bad for Seton. I feel bad because he just doesn't have the money. They just don't have it. I mean, it's part of the reason Kevin Willard was so quick to leave Seton Hall for Maryland, right? Maryland's got the infrastructure. They got the resources. Seton Hall is a very, very difficult job for people that don't understand that. And what Shaheen even did last year with their huge wins was really incredible. I just don't know if he's going to be able to even sustain that. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for him.
Yeah, it was really impressive what he was able to do with the pieces that he had on that roster last year after what they lost the year before. Look, losing Kadari Richmond, Alamir Dawes, and Dre Davis is going to be very, very difficult for anybody, let alone a program that did not necessarily have the budget to go out and get some of those, replace some of those pieces in the portal. I want to throw one more in there. I want to throw Georgetown in there. Just, we heard all about how much they had in NIL. We heard about how much they were going to be able to kind of put this together. And they got Malik Mack, they got Micah Peavy, but those are not necessarily the program changing names that I think some people were expecting them to bring in. Now, the one thing that I will give Ed a little bit of credit for is that I think it's clear he's starting to build this thing for the long term. Jaden Epps still has, I believe, 2 years of eligibility. Malik Mack has, I believe, 3 years of eligibility. He's bringing in some good freshmen that are going to have a chance to be pretty good. Drew Fielder's got a guy that can develop. Jordan Burks is a player that showed some real flashes last season at Kentucky. So I can see the vision for the future, but coming off of a year where the only team that you beat in the Big East was the team that went 0 for 20, like you got to be able to, if you're building for the long term, with the amount of buzz you had coming in and the price tag that you're paying, like they're going to need some more instant results than necessarily something with a long-term vision that'll take 4 or 5 years to get to.
You got to finish ahead of the Butlers, the Villanovas this year. Maybe Marquette. Like you're not finishing ahead of the ones we talked about, right? The UConns, Creighton, some of these top tier teams, but you don't have to. Just make a step into mediocrity, into the middle of the Big East if you can, if you're Ed Cooley. I don't know if they've got enough to be able to do that. I think they'll move up maybe a couple spots, but I don't think they're going to be an NCAA tournament team this year with that roster.
Yeah, to me, it's you got to be above DePaul, right? I think that you got to be above Seton Hall, and you really want to be above Villanova. And if you finish above those three, I actually kind of we'll get into this. Yeah, I kind of like what Butler has done. I know that they lost Posh, and I know they lost they lost DJ Davis, but I don't hate the roster that Thad Matta has there at Butler. Listen, we have a lot more to get to. We're going to talk about X factors. We're going to talk about storylines, and Goodman's going to give you his breakout star and the breakout team in the Big East this year. I can't wait, Jeff. I can't wait to see what you got cooking. That's next. It's time to talk about Vaulted. Vaulted is an app that allows you to store your predictions now and forever. It also allows you to challenge your friends to prove that your takes are, in fact, smarter than theirs. But what makes Vaulted great is that it allows you to keep all the receipts that you need to prove that your friends are not as smart as they think they are. With that in mind, let's roll through the 5 worst Vaulted predictions that were made on the Field of 68 After Dark this season. On November 6th, Jeff Goodman predicted that St. Mary's would make it back to the Final Four. They lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. On November 29th, it was predicted that Arkansas would win the SEC. They finished 12th out of 14 teams. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. On December 28th, it was predicted that Memphis would make it to the Final Four. They did not make the NCAA tournament. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. On December 13th, it was predicted that Michigan State would win the Big Ten. They finished in 6th place. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. On December 29th, it was predicted that Miami would return to the Final Four this season. They finished 14th out of 15 teams in the ACC. That prediction was made by Jeff Goodman. So download the Vaulted app that's spelled VLTED from the App Store now and start keeping all of those receipts. Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. We got about 10 minutes left here. We are in the middle of our Big East offseason reset. Jeff Goodman, Rob Dauster, Field of 68. We are live streaming on YouTube and on Stadium. Goodman, the biggest storylines heading into this season, right? I think the obvious one is UConn going for a three-peat. Did they do enough in this offseason in your mind to be able to put themselves in that conversation? And let's just assume, for argument's sake here, for the point of this conversation, they get Alex Karaban back. Because I think if they don't get Alex Karaban back, the answer is pretty clear.
Yeah, and Karaban should make his decision tomorrow on deadline day here. Could go either way. Yeah, they're in the mix. Because, bringing in Mahaney was absolutely huge for them. Obviously, the culture is strong. So, yes, that's the biggest storyline. Obviously, can they three-peat? It would be insane. If they three-peat, Dan Hurley should just retire. He should retire. I mean, there's no reason to go any further other than the fact that if he retires, poor Andrea Hurley would have to deal with him 24/7. So, I don't think she'll allow him to retire.
If he goes a three-peat, then he absolutely should not retire, because he's going to get a lifetime contract with like 8 digits a year in that contract if you go back to back to back. So no, that would be a horrible idea. Dan, I know you're listening to this because you listen to everything we do. Do not listen to Jeff Goodman's advice, whatever you do. We should go 4 in a row is what I think they should actually do. I also just want to shout out Liam McNeely. We forgot to mention him in the offseason thing. Like, look, Liam McNeely, Aiden Mahaney, Terrace Reed are 3 really, really big gets for UConn. We'll have more on that once Caravan makes his decision here. The other biggest storyline for me, Jeff, and I don't know if this is necessarily going to be something that has a lot of national interest, but I personally am going to be very interested to see how this plays out. It's Marquette. They lose Tyler Kolek. They lose Oso Ighodaro. They lose 2 of the linchpins of what made them who they were the last 2 years. And Shaka did not go out in the portal and try to reload at all. He is trusting his system. He is trusting his program. He is trusting his development. He's trusting Stevie Mitchell and David Joplin and Sean Jones and Chase Ross and Ben Gold and Trey Norman and Zaid Lowry and Al Amadou and all of these guys that he's brought in and he's developed over the course of the last 2, 3, 4 years to take that step forward. And I'm going to be very, very interested to see how that works out because I love the concept of having a program where there aren't a whole bunch of new faces every single year. I think it's very difficult to do that at the level that you need to be able to do it to compete at the top of the Big East.
I mean, you lost their all everything. I mean, you lost Tyler Kolek. He was everything for them. And I'm worried about Marquette this year. I am. I'm worried. I listen. To me, again,
define worried for me. Define worried there.
I'm worried that Cam Jones has to carry him, and I'm worried that there's going to be too much pressure on him, and I'm worried that they don't have a guy to make life easier for him and those other guys on the team. So I think they've got a lot of really good complementary pieces on that team. I just don't know. Like, listen, maybe I'm nuts here. I could see a scenario where Marquette is not an NCAA tournament team this year. I could. Absolutely. I could see it. I know you're rolling your eyes, but is that hot a take?
To me, it is simply because I think that you have a star and you have a bunch of really good role players and you have a coach that has developed these guys. They know what is expected of them. And I would be shocked if they weren't good enough to get a bid to the tournament. 68 teams are dancing. I would be shocked if Marquette can't make it to the tournament. Now, I'm not saying that I think they're going to compete for the Big East regular season title. I think that I don't see the idea of them missing the tournament when you know how bad some of the teams are that make the tournament in this day and age I would be very, very, very surprised.
Okay. Can I run through you quickly? Are they better than UConn?
No, I don't think so.
Are they better than Creighton?
No.
Are they better than Xavier?
I think that that's where you start talking about it's close. Honestly, I probably would lean Marquette in that spot because I don't know. 1, you can't trust Zach Fremantle's foot, and 2, like Jerome Hunter, everything he went through, you have no idea what you're going to get out of them.
All right. Again, gun to your head. Your house on the line. You're taking this Marquette roster over Xavier's. Are you taking it over St. John's? Are you taking it over Providence? Are you taking it? I would say to me, they list 6th for me. For me, they list 6th. That's a fringe tournament team.
I probably would take them over St. John's, and I think I'd probably take St. John's over them, and I'd probably take them over Providence is where I'd have it right now. I think I'd have them. I'd have them in the 4 or 5 range. So look, I get it, man. I just think that if you're saying a fringe tournament team, that's way, way, way too far. Fringe tournament team is more likely out than in, to me.
How many bids did the Big East get this past season?
They got 3 bids this past season.
Right. I mean, there's going to be a clear delineation this year too, I think. I do. I think, again, the bottom's gotten better. DePaul's gotten better. Georgetown's gotten better, but they're not going to compete for the upper tier, I don't think, yet. Seton Hall.
So you're telling me that you don't think Marquette's making the NCAA tournament this year? Is that what you're saying?
I'm telling you that I don't feel good. I think it's a flip of the coin whether they make an NCAA tournament this year. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yep.
Producer Trevor, make sure you write this one down that we can come back to. All right. Do you have any other big storylines? Any other big X factors here? Anything else in this
Yes.
conference that you are very interested in seeing how it plays out? What is it?
Yeah, I want to see what Rick Pitino does in year 2. You know, we all anointed him as like, oh, he's going to get it back right away. They're going to be in the tournament. My dumbass put him in the preseason top 25 last year when he had no players. Now he's got some players. I just don't know how they fit together. I want to see how they fit together. I want to see if they have enough perimeter shooting. I want to see if 70-plus-year-old Rick Pitino can recreate some of the magic. Again, they've done okay in the portal. Is he still the coach that we all – and again, it's different now. When he did it before, he had more continuity with his roster. Now there's a ton of turnover. Can he do some of that developmental stuff now that he was able to do when he was at Kentucky years ago at Louisville? It's changed a little bit, so we'll see.
I feel very confident that they are going to be really, really good. It might be the kind of team that ranks like 80th in offensive efficiency and like second in adjusted defensive efficiency. They may set the record for the highest turnover rate for a defense in the history of Ken Palm's database. But the idea of allowing Kadari Richmond and RJ Luis to be on the same team is something that should be terrifying for every coach in the Big East that has a point guard that may or may not be like 6'9" and super athletic. Like they're going to be a monster, I think, on the defensive end, and that'll be enough to get them to like 23 wins and a 8 seed at minimum. I think they're going to be really good. All right, give me a breakout star in the Big East Conference this season.
So I'm going to go all the way to Wellington, New Zealand for my breakout star. I'm going to go to 6'11", 250-pound Benjamin Gold for my breakout star because I don't know where else it's going to come from for Marquette. Again, I know what Cam Jones is going to do. I don't know where else it's going to come. So I think Ben Gold is going to have a big year this season, obviously, with Oso gone. The other one, I'm going to give you one more, Layden Blocker. Layden Blocker, I love that pickup for Chris Holtman and DePaul. He's electric. He's fun to watch. I don't know how well DePaul does this year in year 1 of the Chris Holtman era, but I think Blocker is just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, to me, this is the toughest one to figure out who the breakout star is going to end up being because you either have like solidified guys coming back or a whole bunch of new faces. Are we allowed to pick David Joplin for breakout stars for back-to-back seasons in a row? Like we picked him to be a breakout star last year, and that didn't happen. No, it didn't work. It blew up in our face. I do. I agree with you on the Ben Gold. You know, someone's going to have to step up for Marquette, and we just kind of talked about him a little bit. I really like RJ Luis. I really do think that he is a guy. You know, there's not a lot of people that have his size, his length, his physicality, and the ability that he has to move all over the floor. And I'll give you one more too. Christ Essendoko at Providence. I think the reason why you saw some of the big guys leave that program is because of his addition. He's a very high ceiling guy. So it might be this year, might be next year, but I think we're going to see a breakout there. Give me a breakout team. Who's going to be better than anyone realizes?
Xavier. I think Xavier is the easy pick for that right now. They just had some bad luck last year with injuries. And like we talked about, they got enough transfers. They're not going to be relying on one guy. But I think a lot of it is going to be Zach Fremantle. And again, it sounds like he's really, 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 really matured over the last year. And if he has, I mean, listen, how many better bigs are there in the country offensively than Zach Fremantle?
Well, last year, every single big in the country was better offensively than Zach Fremantle because Zach Fremantle was sitting on the bench. Like look, if you can tell me that Fremantle and Jerome Hunter, even just Fremantle, if he's going to be healthy throughout the whole year, I'm all the way in on Xavier. They might be able to win the Big East. I think that there are enough question marks with Creighton and UConn and Marquette and St. John's that there's a possibility that it happens. But you're relying a lot on a 6'9" dude who's had 3 really serious foot injuries. And I want him there. Big East basketball is better when Zach Fremantle is there. He's a hell of a character. He's a hell of a player. But I kind of have to see that one to believe it. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I'll also throw Butler in the mix. Love Pierre Brooks. I hopefully, are they getting Jamil Telfort back? I haven't seen an announcement for that yet. So if they can get him, combine that with Pat McCaffrey, combine that with Jamie Kaiser, your guy. I know you like Jamie Kaiser. And Finley Bizjack is another guy. You want to talk about potential breakout players? How about big homie Finley Bizjack? Listen, this has been the Field of 68 After Dark. This has been our Big East offseason reset. And this has been the one place where you're going to find Jeff Goodman talking about Marquette heading to the NIT. This has been the